mean, people were taking good quality pictures with their phones, but it's still 35
Back then, you had to make it just perfect, because you're only going to get one picture, and it was going to have to be perfect, because you couldn't develop 39,000. Once, one shot. Now you go, get it.
Yeah.
This was at that Nikon camera that I was back in 1973. I mean, gee, it's a heavy thing. Still got it. I mean, you can't get in.
That's, I was just saying, I saw my Nikon 35 at my parents got me the picture. And Aaron bought me a Nikon digital.
Not it's a Sony digital.
Well, I had another Nikon after it's D200 digital.
Okay, so that did the part, so we're going to put you on my phone, and he's doing his record.
It's kind of entry level digital SLR.
So,
It's got like a, so what is it, it's got a nice zoom lens, which I really, really like. I picked that on some hikes for us.
oh, okay. I'll put that in speaker.
She bought that, we went to Amsterdam, she gave it to me, it's really perfect.
Here?
She was on for work, so I went off for a couple days and did my own thing in town. Hit all the museums I knew she was going. Found this diesel engine museum in town from old ships. Big diesel engines, some small ones and stuff. That was pretty neat. And then we went up to Rotterdam.
Oh,
They figured out the buses to get out to the windmills. That was really, really neat. I wish we would have spent another day up there because there was a maritime museum in town. We took the high-speed train up there, and they thought the high-speed train there was like an hour ride or something like that. It wasn't worth it. We went from Amsterdam airport to Rotterdam. We got up to speed and we went back down because it was such a short trip. They actually asked us if we were on the right train. So we booked it just to say we were on a high speed.
Right.
That's an adventure.
Yeah, their slower trains are faster than these, so Europe is
They know.
Europe does
Okay,
trains.
sorry about the delay. Rise for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First part is budget. Can you hear anything?
Yep, I push go.
Okay, good, thanks.
Okay. Last time, we stopped at expenditures for the general fund, page 4 of expenditures. So we want to pick up there. I don't think we got through anything on this page, but basically you have your donations at the top, debt service with regards to the recent refinancing, as well as new proceeds listed in debt service column. Moving down the page, just cleaning up the chart of accounts regarding Social Security, Medicare matches, workers' compensation charges, as well as insurances for liability, property, and auto. And then employee benefits with regards to hospital, major medical, pension, disability. And then finishing up, general fund expenditures would be interfund operating transfers. The 492 060, the water fund transfer, that is to move American Rescue Plan Act funds from the general fund to the water fund based on council's prioritization of those projects. And most of those funds, that $150,000 was to go towards the South 3rd Street water project. So that's why you see that transfer. That's also shown as revenue in the water fund. Kind of balance out that transfer.
Do you think workers' comp might change if we go with the, wasn't that the PSAB?
It wouldn't be workers' comp, it would be unemployment comp.
Do you think
Yeah.
that'll reduce?
Uh,
Well, it's not that much.
Yeah, that won't change because you'll be splitting it up among the funds.
I was thinking it was workers' comp.
That's fine. So that finishes out general fund expenditures. If there's any questions. Moving on, refuse fund, that again is the newly created fund to track expenditures and revenues better regarding the refuse and recycling collection. You have your normal operating expenses, new line items at the top regarding just general accounting and office expenditures. Obviously, the bulk of this fund is made up of the contracted service for refuse and recycling. The number shown in the proposed budget does reflect the approval that was given at last month's meeting to extend that into 2022 at that price. Questions there? All right, moving on to the water fund. These are not broken down as much into subcategories because they all really relate. You'll see that in the water fund and the sewer fund, but they still have their separate individual line items.
A question about salaries with the water office. Is that a new position?
It's not a new position, it's
Breaking it out
it's
separately?
breaking it out. It actually was rolled into the line item below that, which was salaries, labor.
For labor.
So if you see that the amounts are very similar,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we just, again, that was to clean it up and put the numbers in the appropriate categories, or appropriate line items.
Makes it a lot easier for tracking.
Yeah, so that was a new account number. The other one was a chemical supply, which previously went into operating supplies. Again, just to try to track those. We also added 448,236, which is meters and piping. Again, that was rolled into just general operating supplies.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it should be a separate
Yeah.
interesting. And the same thing with permits?
Yes, that was rolled in to that same operating supplies water. The other one was repair and maintenance. That was just the system. We added one and broke that out for buildings as well.
For the professional services, water, is that, where the charges are for the contracted
The Horizon contract,
supplier?
yeah.
Yeah. Is that going to reduce now that we have,
Donnie's gonna carry it for 6 months
Yeah.
and make the transition. That's actually, I don't know, I actually just found out today, but Jake has all of his water licenses now, including the caustic and everything. So now we have Donnie and we have Jake as his backup, So probably felt pretty comfortable with, I mean, Horizon will still be there, but
Well, I was gonna say, because that number is so high, would we consider to reduce that? Are we gonna need as many hours as we used to with Don and Jake Dickey?
Yeah, that would be,
yeah, that's,
Am I in the wrong spot?
no, what was budgeted for 2021 was not,
Didn't
basically not,
reflect.
not enough.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah,
But if it goes down, should we,
it should be, it should be 3K a month, like 3K a month, right?
right,
So
I
if
think,
we're gonna do it
we
for-
said about 6 months, right, Don?
Yeah, so that would be
So we
18K.
would go down to 18.
Cat,
Right.
I didn't see
I
it.
mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's,
No, it's fine.
That's up.
Yeah.
So is that what we're doing? We're gonna
Yeah,
drop
we'll
that down to
take it
18?
to, yeah, 3 sixes or 18. So 18K.
Okay. Other questions as you move down through? Obviously, capital improvements, we know that numbers, that kind of happened after this was originally proposed, so that number's obviously very low.
Very low.
Yeah.
and again, these are nickels and dimes compared to that, but the water dues and membership, it's decreased dramatically, like 15 to 2,000 a year.
Yeah, that, I believe that one was the one that had the permits rolled into it. So
Oh,
when
I see.
said earlier,
Sorry,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
And we're going to, we're looking at moving the money around from the loan proceeds.
Yeah,
And
the-
possibly getting a grant for part of that.
Right, yeah, we've already made application in for the tank replacement, as far as grant funds, to try to offset that cost. There is the other option to reallocate some of the funds from the general obligation note that was done earlier this year. So if you remember, we borrowed an additional $3 million for sewer fund. That money's not being touched right now. You're not paying debt service on it. It's just sitting there as basically a drawdown. The chance of us needing that in the next few years is probably pretty slim at this point. So you would have the option to move some of that money, in theory, from the sewer fund to the water fund or general fund, depending on where the need is for those projects. Or you don't have to do that at all, but there is a possibility to do that because of those, they have not been allocated specifically to the sewer fund there. They're just basically there as one large note. The bank broke it up for us, so.
And just as a, you know, for the record, kind of a statement, any upgrades that would increase capacity to the sewage treatment plant would come from other people, either Hopewell or Shrewsbury Township, who wanted to make the increased capacity.
Internet and website for the water. So I mean, obviously the internet, they need the connection for their systems and everything. Website, what does that entail for them?
That would just be upkeep of the existing website, just something that's split between the different funds because it'll encompass information from all of the water fund, sewer fund, parks and rec.
So you split that up into the different
It's split up now.
expenditures, yeah.
Yep.
The training and conferences, you also split out from another category.
Dues and memberships.
That was just, okay.
Okay, Additional questions on that first page of water fund?
What vehicle were we looking at purchasing, or is that just there in case?
That would be the bucket truck.
I'm sorry, the
Our
bucket truck?
bucket truck, yes.
Okay, part of
Yep.
it.
That's proportion to.
Gotcha.
So finishing out the water fund, again, your debt service, that's based on the numbers that were allocated to that originally, and the drawdown of those funds for the water main replacement project. And then again, breaking out the benefits, new line items to properly classify that information. Questions? Water fund? Okay. Superfund expenditures. So the first block, which is 429, those are the shared sewer expenses. So those are all completely shared with the other municipalities. As we get down into the partial, that's where we're breaking out. So for employee time, we're breaking out based on how much time they spend in our collection system, based on how much time they spend at the treatment plant. So when we say partial, that's based on that proportionate share report and those percentages. But the top is basically 100% split between the member municipalities, if that's what you want to use.
So this is, we basically cut this in half?
61.
Well, yeah.
Right. Yeah, but those revenue accounts, the revenue offsetting that subtotal expense account is already shown, or we already looked at that earlier.
Okay.
So this is the full expenditure, and we're matching that with the partial reimbursement.
Partial reimbursement.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
So, you know, just as Donnie and I worked on the water fund, John and I worked on the sewer fund, tried to make sure that the departments had input this year regarding their budgets, and I think the process went pretty well. So we worked on these numbers, again, tried to break out a couple new accounts and classify some information. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward.
Is the building repair like a specific, or is it just general maintenance?
Just general maintenance, yeah. I will say the repair accounts are increased just in case of things happening and breaking down and repairs needed, so those are padded a little bit. But again, that's why we always try to look at keeping revenue on the more conservative side and inflating those expenditures so that we know, hopefully, worst case scenario, you can still have balance in the budget. And one of the major items is they're hoping to get some of the chemicals dialed in, have been able to with the press, sludge press, but we're still looking at over a 20% increase in chemicals. A lot of that comes from basically transportation more than anything. Is they have the product, but it's a matter of getting the drivers who have the proper certifications to be able to haul that product.
Are we getting hit at all with the supply chain?
That's kind of, yeah, it's not necessarily that we don't have the product, it's getting the product to us. Getting the product from the train, off the train car.
Yeah.
So, again, you need a special because it's a hazardous chemical, you need those additional certifications.
How many weeks or months do we have in reserve?
It's not something you
Yeah, I
can.
didn't think
no,
so.
no.
Yeah.
After so long, it starts to
Yeah.
lose percentage concentration.
Wow. Yeah, I know, I'm just thinking, you know, what happens if, you know,
We were very close about a month ago.
yeah.
Luckily, we were able to get it.
Now, in salaries, I mean, we haven't discussed this, and I don't know whether this is a executive session thing. Do we get to see what any increase in salaries would be for next year?
Yeah, we didn't really get into that. Basically, at this point, it's just pretty much flat across the board, just for budgeting purposes. Again, wasn't sure how council wanted to handle that, how it was handled in the past.
Well, normally, we put in a flat, I mean, that's what we did last year, we put in a flat raise in the budget, and then the supervisors decided
How it was gonna,
how it was
Okay.
going to be broken
the
out.
distribution?
Yeah, and that's already, the numbers that you have in tonight,
Yeah, right.
that's already factored in, you know, as looking at a budget number, but individually, they're not broken out yet.
What percent? It was 4?
3.
3?
Three?
And that can be, that's just in there as a number, that can,
Is that something council has to approve?
That's what we were doing.
Oh, okay, I figured it would say,
Yeah, no, we
Okay.
don't approve individual raises unless
Okay.
they're like at the upper level.
gotcha.
I was hesitating because with the staffing shortages everyone's getting hit with, I just wonder, you know, but I think we could put 3% in and then cut and then do individual case basis for if we are gonna lose a key person.
Right.
okay. Additional questions on that first page? Again, the bottom of that first page is the partial expenditures, so that's based on the percentage. Second page, that is all specific to New Freedom Borough. So that is just basically the collection system at the top, as well as any billing and bookkeeping and upkeep.
Postage for the sewer, why,
Mailing of sewer bills.
why did she only have $310,000, or $310 in there last year?
It was broken out from,
It was broken out?
incorrectly. It was just a lump of money that. See, that's the trouble, a lot of these things, it was really hard to track back.
Right, now we
This
have
way,
it.
we'll be able to pull it and track it. I probably should mention too, I mean, this was a huge effort. I mean, this was going through and taking all of the individual accounts and splitting them out and putting everything into QuickBooks. And Andrew's to be commended for the work that he's done to put all this together to make it for, you know, going into the future, we'll have the breakouts that we need to be able to say, oh, I wonder why that went up or this went up.
Moving down the page, debt service, again, that's looking at the refinance that was done, That does include borrowing an additional $300,000 to start the upgrade project. Again, if that was a number that we looked at, that may or may not happen, and that's a full year payment, so at this point, until we get the funds anyway, it would be less than that. So that, again, is pretty much worst case scenario.
And the upgrade project will dovetail into any expansion that we want to do, so we're not wasting money.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for instance, the blowers will be sized such that it'll be able to be used for the new, if we decide that, or if we get money to upgrade from the other municipalities.
Other questions on sewer fund expenditures?
Are these chemicals here, are they the same type where you can't get them as easy because of the problem of transporting them?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about back on the first page at the top?
Yeah, where it says, for 2021, it says 131,000. And we're still having trouble with, can't get it, in other words, I mean, it's.
Well, 131 was last year.
Yeah.
It's
Right,
150.
2021.
Yeah.
Is there any way, do you know how hard it would be for someone to get okayed to drive to haul something like that?
We get your hazmat endorsements through PennDOT, you have to have a DOT, for the vehicle, you have to have,
It's the hazmat certification.
DOT
You know, having a
physical.
CDL, having a Class A CDL to be able to do a tanker truck is one thing. Having a hazmat certification to be able to haul those chemicals is a little bit different, yeah.
That would probably then be pretty expensive then to, I mean,
And the liability.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
Yeah. No, thank you.
We're okay right now, but you have the same concern I do. What happens, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
we can't treat unless we have the chemicals, so.
yeah, so that's what I was trying to, I'm like you, and I was trying to figure out something maybe we could do.
Trouble here and nights.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, that's, because we don't want to be caught like that where we can't get the stuff, because that would be, but it looks like it's going to be almost impractical to try to get anything going on our own, at least to haul it anyway, transport it.
Yeah, I don't think that's, realistic to start training our own drivers.
Too, you have to buy a truck then and everything else, so.
It's not that easy to find a substitute either,
No.
you know, one chemical for others, you just can't do that.
No.
And the chemicals isn't something that would be applicable to co-stars or anything that we could go in with another municipality or?
Would have to be a municipality with a wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah. Well, we've got Glen Rump, we've got Stewartstown, we've got, I don't know, who else is close?
Yeah, you'd have to make sure that they're, so especially as you get into the polymers, there's hundreds of different makeups of polymers. And each treatment plant, each sludge will react differently to different makeup of polymers. So they do jar testing at each treatment plant to determine which one's gonna work the best and settle the solids out and remove the phosphorus. But when you're talking about, so that could be specific to the treatment plant. We're also talking about, they're using ferric at our plant. They might use a pack or an alum at another plant. So the possibility is there, but every treatment plant's gonna use different chemicals for the most part. A lot of those purchasing, they're already done at a pretty much a contract level.
I know, with salt,
With
with
salt, we were
cinders,
able
we
to-
were able
yeah.
to do co-stars. I didn't know if there was something that might be available. I'll leave that to you and Denny, that's your expertise. I'm up in,
Yeah, I mean, do you know what the other ones are using in the area, Glen Rock and Stewartstown, and
Oh, well, Stewartstown is ferric.
they're using ferric too?
They used to use ferrous sulfate, and then they went to ferric chloride, because it just works better, they use less of it. But all those materials, Allen too, more ferric, I mean, they're pretty corrosive too. You have to be careful when you handle them, and, you know, it's an issue transporting it too, of course. But so, yeah, they use it ferric.
Okay.
I don't know anybody who uses alum. I mean, to me, alum is more of a water treatment chemical, and most places seem to use ferret, seems to react better with phosphorus. With aluminum.
Well, the ferric doesn't come on a tanker, though, we get those in barrels, right? So that's not even,
No, that's
that's a tanker?
tank.
Yep, that's what
Yeah.
Stewartstown gets in.
The polymer is coming in totes.
Barrels.
Right.
Yeah. Mini totes. Yeah.
It's a bulk handling unit down at the treatment center, where they then bulk loaded to for storage here. Yeah, I think I remember that we talked to each other.
We probably should push on, because that's really not that's not a budget issue, so. Although it's a good issue.
well, it is if we can save money.
Well, you know.
I'll talk to John. I'll see if, yeah. Regarding the recreation, sorry, I'll go back. Are we good on the sewer fund then? Sorry. Recreation fund expenditures, again, these were the numbers that were provided by the Recreation Commission. I know we talked last time about removing those categories from the revenue class. We'll do that as well on the expenditure side of that.
I brought that up at the rec council meeting the other night, just that it was gonna be a blanket events,
Yeah,
and leave it at that.
they can decide what they want to do then.
Yep.
I think it's probably easier for them too.
Comments, questions?
What's a capital improvement for $1,000? I don't remember seeing it on the other side.
Wouldn't. It wouldn't be,
It wouldn't be a capital improvement, right? At $1,000.
not at $1,000, no.
Could be repairs or something.
Yeah, unless they change that as, we can change that.
Yeah, I mean, just make it repairs. I mean,
Repair
right there,
equipment.
but yeah, the playground might need something, some bolts, and I know, whatever. I mean, that way they can use it for.
Okay. Can make that change. I'll probably change that to a 452, 374 instead of a 720.
I guess it needs changed on the other, the revenue side too, if it's there.
It shouldn't be there.
Probably not.
Ryan, do you remember them talking about any type of capital improvements or anything that would fall under that? Because I don't.
No,
What the dollar amount would make it not capital. I mean, that's just a repair or whatever.
Okay. All right, highway aid fund expenditures, pretty simple. Just budgeting money next year for the 2022 street improvement project and using $300,000 of liquid fuels funds for that project.
that was some of the alleys and stuff that we talked about before,
We can't use liquid fuels funds for alleys, so this would just be.
just roads.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
And that would still leave, even after pulling that 300,000 out, we'd still end up with a balance of over 96,000 at the end of the year. Community center fund expenditures. Again, compared to what was budgeted in 2021. Not a lot of changes there. Actually, a small decrease in budgeted, proposed budgeted amount. Questions, comments?
The cleaning service, the reduction from that, it's about $2,500 difference.
That was just based on actual.
Okay. A little bit more
Probably.
time.
It might, it might be down because of COVID too. If you used actuals for that.
Yeah, I thought that was increased last year because of additional cleanings for COVID. So we brought that back down just to the normal cleaning. I'll verify that though.
Okay.
So if it stays that way.
Other questions? Really, the sheets after that are, you have some budget charts. Would obviously like to see that we have more years of history there, but current software, that makes that a little bit difficult. So right now, what you're looking at is the 2021 budget and the 2022 proposed. So each fund's broken out there just as a visual aid. For your review, and then the appendices are there as well, following the charts. So I was able to look at a tax analysis based on the assessable taxable value, and obviously at this point there's no increase.
Are these backwards? Color codes? No.
At this point, there's no budgeted increase in the general millage or the fire tax millage unless something changes. The second sheet is basically the tax rate of the boroughs of York County. So we're showing all 36 boroughs, showing the population estimates, their tax rates over the last couple of years, and where their increases have fallen across the board. So you can see the group average is about 3¼ mils for 2021.
But you did say there wasn't going to be a tax increase.
At this point, the way the budget prepared is prepared without the tax.
You said there wasn't going to be a tax increase.
The following appendix is the fund balance policy that was approved earlier this year, and that's just in there for reference, so when you're looking at that summary sheet, you understand where those restricted committed funds are, where those terms are coming from. The utility fee summary is there, that's for water, sewer, and refuse accounts. We did talk about the 2 increases for water and refuse. And then the last pages are the debt service schedules for the general fund, water fund, and sewer fund, just for your reference. Just any questions on those sheets? then is to, I guess we can, police budget, where that stands.
Yeah, we do need to talk about that. I guess I'll start. We have a police budget right now. It's pretty much firm, I guess. Donna just sent us some information. The liability, insurance isn't quite yet firm. One thing that we put in our budget $640,000 for the police budget. We anticipated that it would be about $620,000, and it would be about $620,000, except what the finance committee recommended, and please jump in anytime. But what the finance committee recommended was that our PPUs are slightly higher, about 0.54, I believe, higher than last year. So they're asking us to increase our PPU amount. The problem, I think, that the mayor and I both have with that is that the PPUs under the agreement that we signed in the IGA only change every 2 years. They changed last year, so this year they should be at the same 15.16 that we had. These numbers just stick in my head, but no, so they should be at the same 15.16. So if they were at 15.16, and if everybody kept their PPUs the same as they were last year, our budgeted amount in this budget that we're getting ready to advertise would be around 615, 620. So I don't think, and again, this has to be discussed, but I don't think as a council we could just take the IGA and throw it away and say we're not going to follow what we signed up to do. So I think what actually has to happen at this point, again, in my opinion, and I think in the mayor's opinion, is the finance committee needs to go back to the municipalities and say, we're not changing our PPUs for this year, because that's contractually what we agreed to do. So we're going to keep ours at 15.16. Everybody should keep their same PPUs that they had last year. And I believe, and although it's hard to determine, but I believe that the intent of only changing the PPUs every 2 years was because you might have a fluctuation, and this would kind of flatten that out. So rather than jump and change our PPUs, I think what my personal opinion, the mayor's opinion, is that we should stick with what we agreed to in the IGA.
I will say, I've been on it for 3 years now, and we have recalculated it each year. So it may be in the IGA, but we haven't been doing that, and the IGA says it's based on 3 years of data. So it's always, if you always go back 3 years, and we had just switched it to from like September of 3 years ago to August of this current year, because that would be when we have the most recent data, you would have 3 years of data. So every year you would adjust it. I mean, I know it, I saw it in the IGA, but I don't think we have been doing that. So it does seem a little unfair that the one time as our PPUs go up, we say, no, never mind, we want to stick to the 2 years. The past 3 years, I believe we have recalculated the PPUs. We weren't even doing it right last year because the chief's supposed to provide us with the recommended PPUs for each municipality based on the 3-year average.
What did we do the year before that? I mean,
I believe we've been just calculating it based on the incidents. I think the 1 year, I think we just went back 1 year. I don't even remember. I think that was to try and help Glen Rock out. We were coming up with all kinds of calculations, and whatever one was going to be the best one to help Glen Rock.
Well, we didn't have the incident reports for
Right.
1 year.
Right.
What we're calling in the IGA a Franken year, we had, what was that, 17? We had half of 1 year, half of another, and a full year in between, where they didn't even track incidents.
Right, the
So-
IGA said 2017 and then 2019, and it should have been 2021. If you read the IGA, it started in 2017, and it said the next one will be in 2019. Well, we haven't been doing that. We're not
Well,
really.
17 was for 18 and 19.
Right,
So if we go by 2 years, that will be 19 and 20. So we already did that in 2020. So we wouldn't be due, really, according to the 2-year plan,
See, I
to
don't
do
think
that
so.
again until beginning in 2023.
It would be this time next year, basically.
This time next year.
Right.
And I think that the finance committee needs to do their budget based on that 2-year period, not vice versa. You know, not raise the PPUs, lower, don't get a car next year. You know, don't, a couple of other things. I mean, we cut our budget and adapt our budget, and I think they need to adapt their budget to what the previous PPUs were.
Yeah, I don't even think, I'm not even arguing that. I mean, the fact that the PPUs went up by, I can't remember what the number is, but, some amount, I mean, the cost of our piece of the pie went up. But right now, we're looking at an 8% increase, and, I mean, keep in mind, when we go through this every year, it seems like, but, last year when we went through this, we were told that it was okay for Glen Rock to not buy additional PPUs that would be required because the chief could manage their amount of PPUs to keep them within. So I don't understand why New Freedom Borough wasn't unless there was an extraordinary incident, which I'm unaware of, although there was the arson case.
Well,
that's
right,
ongoing.
the chief had said that only if another municipality was willing to, buy those extra hours, but that didn't happen. We gave
Right.
the rebate to them, so they did get their fair share of PPUs. Ours went up, it's 0.58%. So the incidents for the 3-year total, the PPUs, it says 0.58% change.
It's not 0.58, it's 0.58 PPUs. So if you multiply that out, it's like $25,000 about.
Well, I'm talking about the incident percentage, the percentage of.
Oh, okay, you're looking at the
percentage of our
incidents.
incidents, right. So based on that, our PPUs went from 15, the current PPUs are 15.16, and then it went up to 15.78. So I wish you had mentioned this in the finance committee meeting. I think that would have helped for us to know that.
Well, I said I have to bring it back to council, because of the budget, and after the meeting is, when you digest all this information, and President of Council and I have kind of discussed it, and we started getting a little confused, and then we went back and looked at the current IGA, which we're operating under, and I did, if you recall, at the Finance Committee meeting, say I don't agree with splitting up a year. We work on a fiscal year, January to December. Gail, their accountant, works on the same premise, January through December. Why doesn't the police commission, when it comes to their budget, work January through December? They should have taken, in my opinion, they should have taken 18, 19, and 20 as 4 years and used those incidences instead of using a partial year going through what, August?
Right, the understanding is that when you start working on your budget, you won't have December of the current year. We have to start working on it in September. So that's why it was, and then that's why we're looking at changing the IGA. The IGA just says it'll be based on 3 years worth of data. It never clarifies what 3 years that you want to use. So if you're working on the budget starting in September, that's where the Finance Committee said, every time we calculate it, we will go back 3 years starting from September, so it will always be fair. But that would be calculating it every year. That wouldn't be taking a 2-year break you know, taking a year off and calculating it again. And they are looking to change the IGA to clarify that and make it more,
Is this the,
Yeah, that's
yeah, I mean,
the current-
what it actually says is that the, effective as of the 2019 fiscal year, the minimum number of units to be purchased by each member municipality shall be established every 2 years. I mean, that's pretty clear. I mean, I guess my question would be, if we have the, obviously we had 2018 and 19, they established something, I don't know, did they change the PPUs from 18 to 19?
well, you have to, well, the
Yeah, I
IGA
don't
is
know.
also, you have to look at it because the recommended PPUs in there are way lower. That's what Glen Rock was trying to say, wait a minute, it's in the IGA that we only have to take this many PPUs. And when we added extra officers in the department, that increased the PPUs. So to make it work, you have to have more, that's what Glen Rock was saying last year. It's right in the IGA, it says, I only have to have this many PPUs. And it's more than that, they need to
Well,
have.
no, that was only the starting out point. I understand why the PPUs change when officers change.
Right, but they're saying that's their minimum. That's what Glen Rock said last year when we tried to tell them that they had to buy more PPUs. And, you know, they came to the meeting, the president came to the meeting and showed us the IGA.
The language clearly needs to be
Yeah.
looked at, because there is a sentence before that that says, no member municipality may reduce its units below that required to professionally handle its obligated activity as calculated on a 3-year average. Well, that suggests that you do it every year because you're looking at the last 3 years to see what your average is. And then it says, but we're gonna do it every 2 years. So there's some contradictory language to try to like make heads or tails over. I think that it does need to be reworked, and it sounds like.
They've been working on it
Yeah,
for a long,
I know.
and it's never gonna probably happen because you need total agreement from all the municipalities to change it.
Yeah.
I guess what this council should probably know is that where the PPUs as apportioned to municipalities changed from 18 to 19, which was the first 2-year period. And then did they change from 20 to 21? And that would, you know, that would at least show consistency.
I think you're suggesting it has, is that correct?
I thought it had. I mean, I wasn't on the finance committee when I first joined. That was when Burrs left that I got on there, so I thought it was changing. Mostly, I thought it was to help Glen Rock, but I thought it was changing every year. I don't remember ever hearing about, you know, it is in the IGA, but we don't pull that IGA out a lot. That's when the Glen Rock president showed up with it, but it is in there, but I thought it was changing every year. I can look into that, and I can get
Well,
back to you.
that would be the key question, I think. I think if it at least showed that that was what everyone was operating under, then I guess I would have less of a problem with changing it mid-cycle. Don't you think? I mean,
Yeah,
if we've been changing it mid-cycle since before we got here, then I guess I don't have a problem with changing it mid-cycle, but otherwise, I think I have
a problem with them, you know, they have an IGA set up, and they apparently chose not to follow it.
no, that's
And
another issue, yeah.
I have a problem with that. Working on the IGA for the last year and a half, and in the middle of COVID, of course, we haven't been able to complete a lot of our meetings.
Bruce isn't here.
Yeah, Bruce isn't here, but I mean, it makes a difference. I gave you a figure. I think the difference is what, between 25,000
About 25K.
to almost 50,000. You know, if you take the number of PPUs that we were responsible for last year and put it towards the dollar amount of what a PPU is, which is $40,646, you come out with a $25,000 increase. I'd be more prone to say, yeah, that works, but you're still basing it on 3 partial years. you know, what would happen, what's gonna happen if the end of this year, you know, our PPUs are down?
That's why, that's the beauty of that, that's why we wanted to be in the IGA, is that it will always be the same time frame. It will be, so next year you'll go back 3 years, starting from that September of 3 years ago. So 2018 would drop off and you would have, you know, September of 2019 through August of 2022.
No, I
So
agree,
it
and
will
the
always-
future IGA will be more succinct when it comes to its verbiage of how that works. But in the meantime, and that's been one of the problems with getting it completed, in the meantime, though, we have other verbiage that is saying 2 years here, but 3 years there, and who determines the 3 years? Somebody is arbitrarily picking the time frame for those 3 years, which I don't go along with that. I still think it should be 18, 19, 20. There are 4 years, that's what the fiscal year of the budget for the police department is based on. That's what our budget is based on. That's what I think the finance committee should be based on. And they need to, I don't care, we're able to figure out what we think all of our figures are gonna be for workers' comp, for this, for that. They knew that they were gonna have a 3.5% increase for, according to their contract with their officers, which is fine. I don't think anybody's gonna complain about that. It's just,
I don't think anyone's arguing the value or the cost of a PPU. We're just saying that the contract states a 2 years. Glen Rock was upset last year because theirs went up, but that was a year, it was supposed to change. I mean, we can't, I mean, that's just how it's gonna be. I mean, you know, I agree. I think the new IGA should say it changes every year on a 3-year rolling average. It could even say, for the sake of argument, a 36-month rolling average, so that you just pick a point in time and it, you know, it doesn't affect the fiscal year. But that's what the contract says, and that's what we wanted to follow.
Right, I
So-
can look into the last 3 years and see
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, I mean, if it's been changing all along, then I guess, and we haven't jumped up and down before, then I guess we've kind of accepted that as being what's going to happen. And I would agree with that, but I think we need to figure out when those changes occurred, because it is a contract signed by all the municipalities. Does anyone else have any? You're probably sick of talking about it from the last 4 years, but.
With what we have budgeted now, the 646, how much more would we have to budget to meet this?
Oh, no, we'd be okay with the six.
We're
The
still okay.
six.
You're at 638 now, you're under budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're okay with the money we have in there. My problem is it should be 620.
Okay.
So we're trying to
Well,
figure
we'll
out
just
what
bring it
number,
back.
right, we're trying to figure out what number to put in there, and if you calculate it under contract, it would be 620. I mean, when you buy a car, you can't change the price of the car after the contract's written. Does anyone have any thoughts, questions?
how do you want me to approach the commission?
Well, I think we need to find out, that's really the only question I think that needs to be answered. Did they change the PPUs from 18 to going into 19? And did they change the PPUs from 20 going into 21? I know we changed them in 20.
Why don't you do that, Davey? You work with him.
Well, I can ask Peter, that's not a fair solicitor.
I mean,
I can ask him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's information that's available. I'm sure it's in my file, part of it's in my file cabinet at home. I mean, you know, I mean, it's just needs to look at it and see, I mean, because if it didn't change, then that means that if we had 15.16
in 18, it should have stayed 15.16 in 19.
Right.
And then it could change in 20, but it,
And that's my thought, you need to change some other things within your budget to fit those PPUs.
right, yeah. But I don't, I mean, just to be perfectly clear, we're not arguing the total number of PPUs. That is fixed. The PPUs what we're arguing is the allocation. You know, Shrewsbury Borough went down a little bit, Glen Rock went down a little bit, Stewartstown went down a little bit, and we went up by 0.58. That's the question. But we're not arguing that. If you actually kept last year's PPUs for everybody, then the Finance Committee would legitimately have to go back to all the municipalities and say, we're keeping the PPU allocation the same as it was last year. But the value of the PPU has gone up to what the Finance Committee came up with. I'm not arguing that.
I agree.
Okay. I'm done. Sorry. So, back to the original question. The only thing I think that we need to do is the police department budget. That's the only other, we made a couple little minor tweaks.
Right.
You know, but nothing major.
Did we make a decision on, I know we had a discussion last meeting, on the rental of the kitchen?
That
Did
won't
we ever
happen
come up
until,
with anything?
we're working on that, but that won't happen I mean, their lease goes through this
2
year, I
years?
believe, yeah.
Okay, so
So that's
they're-
not a budget issue, it's
Gotcha.
just
Okay.
an issue.
Well, I guess council needs to decide, if you plan on holding another budget meeting so we can have time, to finalize that number with the police, and then clean a couple of these numbers up and get a solid document that's, to be advertised to the public. Again, that needs to occur 10 days before, your adoption meeting, so it's.
We need to do another special meeting?
I think just for the sake of having everything clean, because right now, we don't really have something that we could say, yep, go advertise this. We have to make a couple minor tweaks, we have to do the police thing, which, are you taking the action to talk to, okay.
I will.
So why don't we say we have a week to make the final changes and get the police thing straightened out one way or the other. And then we'll have a continuation meeting, but it'll be short, because we'll just have to look at the changes.
Right.
So the solicitor for the police commission indicated it's only been changed one time in 2 years, the PPU.
Oh, okay.
He just confirmed that it's per the IGA. I texted.
Okay,
So it's not due to be changed then
until next year.
until next
Just
year,
at this time.
That's what he said. He said it's one time per
for 2
2
years.
That's what he said.
Well, then, then I think that's kind of what we have to go with. I mean, I think that, then if you can talk to the Finance Committee and tell them that we're gonna stick with our 15.16 PPUs, and that we'll change them next year this time.
Now, we don't have a police commission meeting until what, the 1st? December 1st?
The first Wednesday,
Is that correct?
whatever the first Wednesday is.
Yeah. That's it. So, I mean, that's,
I think we're gonna have to make a decision on what to put in the budget.
I was gonna say, because if we have to have 10 days before we're approving, we approve at
Right,
the next
right.
meeting, then we're gonna have to probably have our little meeting.
So, right now, we're at 640, and the budget, actual police budget puts us at 638, and we think we should be at 620, so,
and correct me if I'm wrong, Donna, the police commission still really hasn't approved this budget, am I correct?
We haven't approved it, we don't even have, we're still waiting on the liability insurance numbers.
So they haven't even approved it.
So,
So they're not gonna approve it until December 1st, and this is another problem, and I said, it's gotta start earlier. We can't wait until December 15th.
They can't give you a budgetary on the liability insurance?
well, she usually puts in the same numbers that she got last year. Like she put in the same numbers. Pension aid was actually more. They just got the pension aid. That was a little higher than they expected. Workers' comp, they have been told it might go up 8 to 10%. It only went up 6.5%, so that was good. But she doesn't know, it's still an X factor. She always says, I can budget high. I can put in 20,000, I can put in 30,000. So
Yeah.
if that's what would you rather, have pay extra?
Well, Buck did that, we were at 4.95, and they came out with a lower price, and it
It's
came
4.8
down to
now. It's
4
4.8.
point what?
4.8.
Point-
It changed to
4.8.
4.8%.
Okay, I'll make a recommendation. It would be my recommendation that we put 638 in the budget, which is our total obligation if they change the PPUs, and I would not be planning on paying out until we resolve the issue. Our quarterly payments to the police commission would be based on our 15.16 PPUs. And I think that the police commission needs to come back to us and tell us why it's not that way, if that's, I mean, their own solicitor says that's the way it's supposed to be. So,
He said that's what's been done,
right.
so it
Well, I
sounds like
mean,
per the IGA.
I mean, the words say it's supposed to be that
Right,
way,
right.
and that's what they've been doing, so I don't know why we would change it all of a sudden this year.
Does it require a motion of anything?
No, I think we just have to agree that it's a number we're putting in the budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's no different than any other
Right.
budget number, but, council needs to decide that as a whole, and then we need,
So,
just to clean a couple of these numbers up, which is very minor.
yeah. So does everyone agree that that's what we're gonna do?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what we're gonna do. We'll put the 638 in, and then resolve the issue, hopefully within the next week or so. But I
Do
mean,
we still need to have a short meeting so that we can?
advertise, yes. And what we'll do, what Andy and I talked about, you're still there, Dave?
Yep, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, cool. Just thought I'd check. Yeah, so what we were talking about is that I think the 16th, we said? Is that what we were thinking, the 16th or 17th?
Planning on Monday.
Oh, that's right, we were planning on Monday, okay. But again, it should be a short meeting. I mean, what we'll do is if Andy can get the stuff in our mailbox no later than Friday close of business, but it should be earlier than that. And he'll send us an email, and then if we can take it home over the weekend, take a look at it, and then we'll get back together to review the changes, and then we'll go ahead and advertise as long as we're all okay.
So you say on the 15th at what time?
We didn't say a time yet. I was waiting for,
16th or 17th, right?
oh, is that what we want, 16th or 17th?
Yeah.
Because you had a meeting or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be the 16th or 17th.
What was 16th?
16th.
What do we do the other day? What is it?
Was it 3:30?
Oh, it's just not a
I
good,
think it was dependent on your
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah, I can't remember what time it was. We'll say 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock,
Yeah.
okay. Does anyone have a problem with that?
I do.
You do?
Can we do it the 15th?
No, we can do it the 16th or the 17th.
I've got 3 meetings each day, each night.
Well, I mean, you can review it and see if there's anything you want to make a comment about before the meeting. I mean, you don't really need to be here at the meeting, or if you want, I can phone you in if you want to hear
I'll
what's,
tell you what, let's make it the 17th.
okay. 17th, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, that should work. All right, so the 17th at,
Afternoon?
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm sorry, sorry, she was saying 3 PM, yeah.
Yeah,
3
okay,
PM.
3 o'clock on the 17th.
So we're advertising this as a,
Continuation meeting for budget only.
it's still a special meeting.
Well, if you're gonna continue this meeting until take a date, time, and fixed, you don't have to re-advertise.
Right,
Okay.
but that needs to be done at the end of the meeting. But
Well, the
tonight's-
special meeting, or unless we're just rolling into the
Right. So it's
regular
not-
meeting.
Because it's a budget, yeah. To close out.
No, we opened the meeting.
Oh,
The
I'm sorry.
meeting is open,
Oh.
yeah. We just, our first item was budget. We even said the pledge.
Oh. Mhm.
We can pledge twice. Good?
So just clarification, so then at that point, we'll have a new packet with all the revised numbers, the summary. You'll be authorizing advertisement for adoption at the December 13th meeting. There's no tax increase, so it'll be tax resolution along with the corresponding fee schedules. So, and all that will be available for inspection 10 days before the 13th.
Sounds good. Okay.
Recess.
Do you need a little short recess? Okay. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and we'll be back.
All right. Yeah, I just texted you.
I wish we had done it.
I just, I can't.
No.